and by...
If you ran a drug company, what would you change?
I would try to prevent disease, not just treat it.
I would go after the really tough diseases.
I'd make it so folks wouldn't have to choose between their groceries and their medicine.
At Merck, we believe in the same things you do. Because 50 years ago, George Merck told us to put patients first by creating novel medicines and vaccines and getting them to the people who need them.
I would try to see everything through the eyes of a patient.
Merck, where patients come first.
Tracy McNamara had the job of her dreams. As lead pathologist at the Bronx Zoo, she could oversee the health and safety of hundreds of rare and endangered species. But little did she know she would soon become embroiled in a mystery that would bring New York City to the brink of panic. It all started with the crows.
Crows were falling from the skies in large numbers. I mean, literally, these things were taking nosedives into the exhibits. These things were just dropping like stones.
For over a month, New Yorkers had been noticing the dead crows all over the city, but no one paid much attention, except a concerned Tracy McNamara.
We were worried immediately that whatever was killing these birds would spill over into our captive population of endangered species.
What McNamara didn't realize was that something far worse was happening beyond the zoo. 10 miles away at Flushing Hospital in Queens, patients were being admitted with a mysterious infection that was causing their brains to swell. Dr. Debbie Asnes was at a loss to explain their symptoms.
The first patient came in with fever, nausea, and vomiting, and needed to be on a respirator. Within 2 weeks, we had 4 additional patients with the same problems.
Several of these patients became paralyzed, and 3 died.
I was tearing my hair out trying to figure out what was wrong with these patients.
Asnes feared she was seeing the outbreak of an exotic new disease. She asked for help from the city's Department of Health. Was there anything the victims had in common that could explain their mysterious illness?
We asked every question we could think of. Had they shared any common exposures, any foods, any restaurants? Couldn't really find anything, except all of them did seem to like to spend time outdoors, and particularly so in the evening.
It wasn't much to go on, but officials wondered if another creature that comes out in the evening could be responsible. The mosquito. The city dispatched a team to canvass the area where the patients lived.
This team came back saying there's lots of mosquito breeding out there, and it's quite possible that this could be related to transmission of disease.
But it was a remote possibility. There hadn't been a mosquito-borne epidemic in New York for over a century. This dense, concrete jungle hardly seemed the place. But just to be safe, health officials had the U.S. Centers for Disease Control test samples from the Flushing patients. As New York waited for an answer, several more people were stricken with the disease. And at the Bronx Zoo, a similar tragedy was unfolding among the animals.
All of a sudden, we now had a flamingo that was having difficulty moving around. We had a beautiful snowy owl that had eaten breakfast, boom, found dead an hour later. This thing was just taking out everything in its path. And we felt so powerless. These were individuals we all knew and loved.
Desperate to find out what was killing her birds, McNamara and her team examined brain tissue from the victims.
When I looked at that first slide, it took my breath away. It was the worst encephalitis I'd seen in 18 years as a comparative pathologist.
Encephalitis is an inflammation of the brain, a condition similar to the one affecting the Flushing patients. But no one yet knew of this coincidence. And no one knew what was killing the people or the birds. At the CDC, the results were in. Tests indicated that the human victims were suffering from a rare illness called St. Louis encephalitis, a disease carried by mosquitoes.
An outbreak of the mosquito-transmitted virus encephalitis has claimed
Suddenly,
a second life.
New York was under siege by an insect.
With an 81-year-old female from Flushing, Queens, but she's doing well and she's out of the
The
hospital.
mayor ordered whole sections of the city sprayed with insecticide.
I think the best thing for people to do is not to panic.
When Tracy McNamara heard what was causing the human deaths, she couldn't ignore the similarities.
A bell went off. A scientist isn't supposed to jump to conclusions, but I felt quite strongly that there was a link between the birds and the human deaths. And that very day I wrote my will.
There was something troubling about the CDC's diagnosis. McNamara knew that birds can't get St. Louis encephalitis. So if the same disease was killing both people and birds, it had to be something else. She urged the CDC to examine her bird tissues. But in a world where public health seldom pays attention to veterinary science, she was turned away.
Birds really didn't fall under the mandate of the USDA or the CDC. And because of that, we sort of slipped through the cracks.
McNamara sent her samples to a veterinary lab. When researchers found a type of virus never before seen in North America, an alarmed CDC joined the investigation. And they soon discovered that McNamara had been right. The virus that was infecting birds and humans was not St. Louis encephalitis, but a closely related strain from Africa known as West Nile virus. How it got to New York, no one knew. But if officials had been more alert to the potential connection between the dying birds and the human cases and begun spraying sooner, lives may have been saved.
The fact that the disease had been announced by wild crows well in advance of human illness, and we missed the diagnosis, illustrates if there had been an opportunity to intervene, it was lost, and for no other reason than the alarm was sounded by a bunch of crows.
The outbreak in New York stopped when cold weather brought an end to mosquito season. But not before West Nile virus had infected 61 people and taken the lives of 7. And New York was only the beginning. Infected birds carry the virus wherever they go. And if they're bitten by mosquitoes, the insidious cycle of disease will continue. A mosquito sucks up the West Nile virus along with the bird's blood. If the mosquito then bites another bird, or a different animal, or a person, the virus can be passed on and on. The mosquito is the go-between, the delivery agent, the vector of disease. On the wings of infected birds and mosquitoes, West Nile virus spread relentlessly across the United States. In just 4 years, it killed countless animals and infected 14,000 people. Over 500 died. Nothing could stop it.
When the virus reached Colorado, it had what I would call the perfect storm. The virus newly entering the state, in combination with the right weather conditions, caused a huge outbreak.
Lyle Peterson is the nation's top official monitoring the West Nile outbreak. When the virus invaded Colorado, Peterson got to meet his nemesis firsthand.
I went out to go get my mail, started chatting with my neighbor, and we both noticed we were getting bitten by mosquitoes. Well, by that time, both of us, as it turned out, got infected with West Nile virus. Muscle